Now we have covered a lot of flagship like gaming and productivity monitors on this channel from the likes of brands like Samsung and LG. All of them cost over like $1,000, if not $2,000 plus. So when AOC reached out to ask if I wanted to check out one of their newest gaming monitors, I really wanted to see how it stacked up to its more expensive competition. This is the Agon Pro AG326UD, which costs less than half of other monitors that I reviewed this year. So this video, it is sponsored by AOC, who also sent out this monitor for me to check out. But anyone who's watched our monitor reviews before will know that I just like to put these monitors through their paces and just really see if they can do, what they say they can do. And like I said, since this screen has many of the flagship features from more expensive monitors, a 0.03 millisecond response time on a 4K UHD QD-OLED panel with adaptive sync, 165 Hz refresh rate, 99% DCI-P3. I am just super curious to know how well this actually performs. Now, starting off with the unboxing experience, which is pretty straightforward. Now, just be sure to pull out the monitor the right way up with all of the accessories on top. Then you can just attach the stand to the back of the monitor. It's not a screwless process like those I'm used to. This time I had to use the 2 included screws along with this tiny screwdriver. And now I did actually struggle to tighten them all the way because I just couldn't grip on due to it being so tiny. But just swapping that out for a bigger one fixed that problem, so no kind of issue there. Now screw on the bottom, which can be done by hand. And then the best part, the peel. In the box of accessories, you have a VESA mount for if you want to skip the desktop stand and use something like one of the Secret Lab monitor arms. There's a USB cable, HDMI cable, DisplayPort cable, some power cord, some screws for the VESA mount, and then obviously the usual paperwork you get. So this is a gaming monitor, but it also has the specs that makes it for a great just day-to-day monitor for desktop use as well. But the design is definitely inspired by gaming with this angular design and the LED lighting on the back. Now that said, my OCD really struggles that the monitor stand is quite off-centered and not equal proportioned, but give it to them. I believe this is done for esports players and esports reasons, so they have more desk space for their keyboard and their mouse. But again, honestly speaking, if I was going to be using this as my main desktop monitor as a casual gamer, I would definitely be just throwing it onto a Secret Lab monitor arm just to free up all of the space below that monitor. But the stand does come with a fold-out arm at the top to hang a pair of headphones, as well as a clip for some basic cable management towards the bottom. There's also some fairly bold Agon branding on the back, but also obviously the front and center here as well. But you can see how super slim the screen gets at the very top. They've kind of squeezed all of the components into the lower part of the screen, where of course it does get much thicker. Now, as far as specs for connectivity, this is something that mirrors many other kind of premium gaming monitors that I reviewed this year. There are 2 HDMI 2.1 ports, 1 DisplayPort 1.4 ports, and actually 3 USB 3.0 ports, 1 extra than we normally get. One of them with power delivery, which is good to see, as well as the power supply for this being built into the back of the screen. Again, another reason why the bottom part of this screen is actually thicker than others that tend to have, a separate power brick. Now, all of that aside, once you've actually booted into your desktop, this screen looks incredible. Being a QD OLED, you of course get all of the benefits, rich colors. This also has Display HDR True Black 400 certification, so deep blacks, 1000 nit peak brightness at 3%, and a contrast ratio that just still makes me jealous when using my currently daily monitor, which is a mini LED panel. I really just can't wait until they make this this technology into a 57-inch super ultra wide, but with like I said, an OLED panel. For me, that's just an absolute insta-buy. For someone who's looking to upgrade from an older monitor that's perhaps using different technology like TN or IPS or VA, genuinely upgrading to an OLED or one of these QD OLEDs is just staggeringly impressive. Blacks are deep, dark blacks because this again is an OLED. It can just totally switch off those parts of those screen when they're not needed, whereas other panels will have these much larger dimming zones that can be switched on and off, but it's still a whole zone, so you tend to get this haloing or ghosting. And basically, if you put a single white dot on your screen, you would be able to see this whole light spill around it. Whereas with OLEDs, you don't get any of this. So movies, games, even just general desktop use, just like this, looks stunning. Of course, you can't really see that unless you're actually watching on an OLED because obviously the panel might then, so problems. Now, normally with any monitor that comes through here, I do a series of tests in various games like Fortnite, Call of Duty, Forza, and a few others as well. And I would say that since this is more of a budget priced option, I guess, then it is unlikely that people buying this monitor are gonna have a flagship level PC running like the latest 4090 GPU. But this is marketed as a pro gaming monitor, and reading into that, it seems to be that of a competitive gamers kind of level. So I did run through all of the games and recorded roughly what FPS I was getting, and especially this time, I also tested Call of Duty with the competitive settings, so you can then see the difference there as well. So starting off with Fortnite, I was able to reach around 105 FPS on average. Call of Duty reached around 150 FPS on its higher settings, and then 175 FPS with the lower competitive settings, but still on the 4K resolution. Forza reached 183 FPS-ish. I guess just a quick reminder here that these are not by any stretch scientifically accurate tests. I just kind of went with the average of the numbers I'm seeing on screen. Overwatch, a whopping 200 FPS. It always smashes FPS for that game. Cyberpunk hit 75 FPS on its higher settings, and Helldivers 2 at 100 FPS. So all in all, pretty decent results across all games. But again, that is if you are playing on the highest quality settings and at 4K resolution and with, a latest spec, high spec PC. And don't forget, with all of that, you're gonna be able to get much higher FPS with a similar system if you play competitively, lower quality, and drop the resolution back to 1080p. Actually, let me know down in the comments down below, what else should I be testing when reviewing specific gaming monitors, more games, less games, different settings? Which games should I be testing on these competitive settings, and what are those competitive settings? So yeah, just do let me know down in the comments below. Now, there is always going to be some mismatch over time as I typically update my graphics drivers before each of these tests. So, there of course is going to be some variation there. But these tests, honestly, they are just to give people a general idea of what kind of FPS you can hit out of the box, so to speak. So really, what else is missing from this otherwise really well-spec monitor that performs incredibly well? Now, you could argue that it's not 240 hertz, but I'm not sure if that is something that's a problem. Maybe, again, let me know down in the comments down below. As a competitive gamer, yes, I can see you wanting, 240 hertz or even 480 hertz. But for more casual gamers who want to game in 4K on a 32-inch screen, who, don't have the budget for a flagship PC that can actually drive, semi-decent frame rates in AAA titles, I'd say it's a pretty reasonable buy and definitely affordable compared to some of the other options that do have the 240 and 480 hertz out there as well. And since consoles are locked to 120 hertz, it also makes for a great monitor for playing on, Xbox or PlayStation as well. Now, it is missing USB-C, but that is, again, a common kind of complaint I have across every monitor I've reviewed this year, pretty much. I think really one of the only missing things I could really point out from, all of the monitors I've reviewed recently is the lack of an anti-reflective coating on the screen. Now, the last ones from the likes of, LG and Samsung are so good. They are so good that they don't make any noticeable difference to the screen itself. But I will say, I know that is a hugely contentious topic for a lot of gamers. So if you prefer glossy displays, this absolutely checks that box. And then the on-screen display is also pretty straightforward too. This is their G menu software. So you have options for picture-in-picture, picture-by-picture, as well as some game-specific settings, including a FPS counter and a sniper scope option, which is very interesting. There are also built-in speakers, but honestly, again, with all monitors, I'd always just recommend going for either a separate speaker system or a headset. There's just nothing quite like playing a game whilst, wearing that headset and being able to hear where the footsteps are coming from. It just sounds so much better. Now, there are also various light patterns which can go on the back of the monitor. They do get brighter than some lighting I've seen on the back of other monitors, but again, as with all monitors, they are still not bright enough to give you that cool pimp my room backlighting that goes onto your back wall. So yeah, people like that kind of thing. Still worth grabbing a separate LED strip to do that. You've also got settings to protect burn-in, which I'll talk about more in just a moment. And if you come out of the menu system and tap down on the controls, then you get a crosshair as well. Really useful for those FPS games that don't give you an obvious center point to kind of aim and shoot. So overall, No real issues at all with the on-screen controls. They work well, it's great. You can get to all of the settings easily. It's also tucked out of the way to the side here, so when you are trying to make kind of changes to your screen settings, it doesn't then interfere and take over like the entire display. Samsung does that a lot of the time. Even LG's is very front and center, so that's quite nice to see that it's tucked out of the way and hidden. Now the good news that actually does set this apart from its competitors is its 3-year warranty versus others who only give you 2 years. That also includes burn-in cover, and that is an issue I hear a lot of potential buyers are very, very wary of. So giving 3-year cover against burn-in is a pretty solid thing to do. So really, as someone who has been using, I guess you could call them like flagship gaming monitors, and particularly the LG and Samsung 32-inch monitors recently, this one has really impressed me. Now, for the price, it's really not missing that much. It's actually great to see some competition now coming into the fight at like a lower price point. And I think if you don't want to deal with Samsung's quality control issues, which I see a lot of people mention in the comments on my other videos where they've gone through numerous monitor replacements before they get one that doesn't suffer any issues, then that is also another good reason to check out a monitor from AOC as well.